What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. I'm your host, Brandon Davis, and I am so excited to be joining you for yet another incredible year of life. We just hit 2025, and there is so much in store for us. In today's episode, I wanted to dissect a little bit of the framework you could be expecting here on the Get Over Yourself podcast this year, and my simple methods I use to set goals for the upcoming year. As many of you know, if you've been longtime listeners, I'm a massive fan of vision boards and setting out goals, kind of preparing for everything that I have going on inside of the upcoming year. And so with that framework, I'm going to be diving into some of the concepts I personally believe in, how I set some of my goals, how I kind of framework my vision boards to ensure that I'm going to accomplish everything that I have set out for this upcoming 2025. Guys, I promise you, if you follow this framework and adjust it to your personal needs and desires, you are going to have the best year of your entire life. With that all being said, let's jump into today's episode. Guys, just to start, I want to say thank you for all of my long-term listeners out there. This podcast is around 3.5 years old now, which in my head, I can't even begin to describe the feelings that come across my head when I say that. I feel like when I first started it, I had no idea what I was doing. Heck, some days I feel like I still don't have any idea what I'm doing. But the incredible journey that I've been on in the past 3.5 years has been nothing short of a miracle. I've met amazing people who have helped me personally, helped my business, and I've had thousands of you reach out through social media and emailing me and all these types of communication methods, just talking about what you enjoyed in the episodes, my guests, and some of the personal insights and just things like that. And I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, I appreciate every single one of you that has listened thus far, for all the longtime supporters, even if you're brand new. Thank you so much for tuning in. The biggest piece of value we have here on this earth, the biggest thing that we can ever ask somebody for is their time. So when you take the 15, 45 minutes of your day to sit there and listen to me blabber on and on, or with one of my guests at least, I really do appreciate it. With that being said, as we're entering into a new year, I have some very lofty goals for the podcast. I want to continue to grow it and outreach as many young entrepreneurs as I can out there. So if you do have a friend or a family member who you personally think would benefit from hearing this show, this is my ask of the year. I just ask that you would be able to share this podcast with them. Share one of your favorite episodes so they become a listener as well. And my last ask that I have of you guys today is, if you have not gone on to subscribe to this podcast or left a positive review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening today, please take 30 seconds to do so. That's how I continue to grow the show. So guys, I appreciate that. And now with that being said, I want to jump into my goal setting process and how I kind of framework my vision board to ensure that this is going to be the best year of my life. Now that 2025 is upon us, I kind of already did an episode at the end of the year where I close out everything that I had in 2024. What I leave behind all the chaotic, and I come prepared to work, ready to get organized. If you haven't listened to that episode, I share some very, very practical tips any of us can get into. A lot of it was derived from frameworks by Jesse Itzler and a few other great content creators and businessmen and women. So make sure to give that episode a listen. I will say I have been trying to declutter my life as we entered into 2025, and it has been a little bit harder than I thought. There's some things that I'm a little bit attached to. One of the examples I gave on the last episode is cleaning out your wardrobe and making sure you get rid of everything that you no longer wear or technically need inside of your house. And my wife and I have been doing that a little bit, but it's been fun to kind of dissect it a little and see what we actually need inside of our lives and see how much just crap we feel is almost a void filler. But in today's episode, like I mentioned, I'm going to walk you through a little bit about the process of how I set my goals and kind of framework my vision board for the upcoming year. I just finished my vision board. I'm going to go ahead and include a picture of that here on the screen right now. So as I'm talking, you can kind of picture along with what I'm saying here. This year, I decided to framework my entire vision board around a 12 kind of goal-oriented process. 12 major things I wanted to get in the year. If you're questioning the number why 12, it's because there's 12 months in a year. It's not necessarily that I want to focus every single goal, one goal per month for the 12 months of the year, but it's 12 overarching things that I really want to get better at or accomplish inside of this year. And it's something I'm gonna continuously work on all of them. Some are at a certain point in the year, some are gonna come later, some are sooner. But for the most part, every single one of the goals on there is something that I'm gonna be working on for the entire year. And I feel like if you can break those goals into 12 simple steps, it makes it a lot more manageable and you can almost take it into bite-sized pieces. One major restraint that I have when people go and set their New Year's resolutions is they sit down and they think of what could my life be like if I did X, Y, or Z. And I don't think that's necessarily the worst framework. The issue is you kind of treat it almost like the lottery. If you or your friends or your family have ever played the game where you sit down and you say, all right, if I won the lottery, if I hit the scratch off, if I drew the numbers, what would my life look like if I won the Powerball and won $10 million, $100 million, $1 million? What would my life look like tomorrow if I won the lottery today? We play this what if game. We'd move to a different country. We'd buy the nice house. We'd get the cute girl. We'd drive the nice car. There's a million different things that we imagine inside of our heads when we're playing this lottery game. And that's sometimes how people use it for their New Year's resolutions. They sit back on, December 30th, December 31st, even maybe a month beforehand, and they say, okay, I really fell up short on my fitness goals this year. I gained more weight than I was hoping to. I didn't work out. I didn't eat healthy. I'm going to go all in on just fitness and I'm going to go crazy. I'm going to have the 6-pack and I'm going to eat super healthy. And that's what they constantly think about for the first couple weeks of the year. Other people might say, I didn't hit my financial goals. I spent way too much money. I got into debt. I wasn't able to hit everything that I wanted to there. So that's what I'm going to hyperfixate on. And to an extent, I think that's healthy because it pushes us to actually want to accomplish those goals that we maybe didn't do so well in the year prior, in this case, 2024. But the one caveat I have to that is you have to be careful when you're setting these goals that you're not going to, number one, burn out within a couple weeks. They have that saying where the second week of the year, on the second Friday of the year, that's when everyone gives up on their New Year's resolutions. More than 50% of Americans can't even make it past the second Friday before giving up on their resolutions. And I think that's because sometimes we are dreaming so big. We're playing this massive lottery game that we see where we could potentially be, but we don't break it into bite-sized pieces where we can actually get there. So my recommendation for all of you, go ahead, dream big. I think dreaming big is going to help us get somewhere. We might not land on the moon, but we hit the stars. That's a fun saying. But go out there, dream big, but also try and break it down where you can break it into bite-sized pieces. What is manageable? Figure out what you did wrong last year on those goals. Well, where did you come up short on your goals last year, and see if you can kind of framework it. Going back to that fitness example, the reason why I mentioned the abs kind of joke I was saying there a minute ago, I want to have abs by the end of the year. That was literally one of my goals last year. And my lifestyle did not even come close to hitting that goal. I trained really hard for my Ironman. I worked out a lot, but my eating habits were horrible. I ate fast food all the time. I didn't track my nutrition. I wasn't very efficient in that entire process. So this year, my wife and I, we hired a nutritionist that they're going to help us walk through our meal plans, what kind of exercise we need at the gym. They're going to coach us through the areas that I wasn't very good at. I can go to the gym, I can willpower myself, but the area I needed help with is actually tracking my food and making sure I was going to be held accountable, not to go get McDonald's or Taco Bell or something late at night. And so that's how I'm going to break down my goal. I'm not necessarily aiming for abs again this year, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim for a healthier lifestyle when it comes to the kitchen. I did really good with the working out and preparing for my Ironman and whatnot, but the area I didn't do very well in was eating good, eating healthy. So that's the major focus I'm going to be doing for my health this year, is that one major thing. And how am I going to accomplish it? I broke it down into bite-sized pieces. We hired a nutritionist so we can know exactly what we're supposed to be putting in our bodies. So then it's not as chaotic for me. I'm not a perfect scientist or a food nutritionist who's going to go through and know exactly what I should eat, what kind of vitamins I need to take for my body. But what I can do is hire an expert who's going to know that just specifically for me. Now, once again, it's bite-sized. Don't have to worry about the grand scheme. All I have to do is make sure I'm eating the appropriate foods and doing the workouts that my coach has now told me to do. Now, take that into your own consideration. Maybe you have a lofty business goal. Did you accomplish it last year? If you're listening to this, probably not. Let's break that down. Was it a goal of monthly recurring revenue, a certain amount of clients, a certain basis of how much code you wanted to write? There's all sorts of different ways you could have come up short, but let's break that down into bite-sized pieces. How can you get to that 50th customer? How can you get to that $10,000 signed in a month? What are the steps that you need to break down bite-sized pieces to get there? Think about it, apply it. Lastly, once again, I talked about it. I'll pop it up here on the screen once again. So if you're actually watching today's podcast on Spotify or YouTube or something, you could see this year's vision board. As I broke it down into these 12 different categories, these were things I really wanted to accomplish inside of my life. And I kept it a little bit more open-ended than I usually do. A lot of times when I make my vision boards, I make them very, very specific goals and I framework it so I can only accomplish those goals. hence the ab example. I did really good health-wise last year. I just came up short in the kitchen. I was very healthy when it came to actually working out, but not perfect when it was time to eat healthy food. And so now, rather than having a very specific, I'm going to get abs by the end of the year goal, making it a little bit more broad so I have room for adjustment as time goes on. That's another thing that I've noticed myself personally doing, as well as a lot of my friends and family who create vision boards. Make something so specific because that's where you want to be in January. But odds are, come March, April, May, June, July, further along in the year, that's not going to be the same goal that you once had. You'll have an initial traction, you'll see the vision, you'll go into that lottery play once again, you'll see what it could potentially be like to win the $10 million. But then once actually the push comes to shove, you realize it's not something you actually need or want inside of your life. So my goal when you're crafting your own vision boards this year is to make the images or the words or anything like that that you actually can visualize, make it more broad. See the future vision of it. Don't get so nitty-gritty and caught up in the details where you feel like you're failing every day. Just make sure you're hitting those little goals that are eventually going to propel you into the grand vision you have for the year. And that's exactly the framework I'm taking into 2025 to ensure I have the best year possible. As I promise you, if you open your mindset up to optimism and you just prepare yourself as you possibly can, which can be difficult, I promise you it will work out to your favor because you're going to have an amazing year. If you have any questions into further detail about how I crafted my vision board, if you want to see more of the behind the scenes kind of going behind it, feel free to reach out to me by one of the links provided down below. That being said, I'm super excited once again to have you guys here for all of 2025. Make sure to share this episode and once again, leave a like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in next week's episode.